If you're drawn to cases where everyone seems suspicious, where motives hide behind friendly faces, and where every answer only leads to another question, then this one will stay with you. Because what happened in a quiet Kentucky town in 2003 wasn't just shocking. It was deeply personal, پیچیدہ, and filled with twists no one saw coming. At the center of it all was a woman named Anne Branson. At 85 years old, Anne had built a life most people could only dream of. She wasn't just wealthy, she was respected. Known across Madisonville as Miss Anne, she had become something of a local legend. Successful in business, active in her community, deeply connected to her church, and surrounded by family, her life was full, vibrant, and far from slowing down. But Anne didn't start that way. Born in 1917 in Hopkins County, Kentucky, she grew up in a modest, tight-knit family as the eldest of 5 children. Life wasn't easy, especially during the Great Depression. After marrying her high school sweetheart, Carol Branson, the couple struggled for years, working tirelessly just to get by. Then came a turning point. In 1950, after years of saving, Anne and Carol invested everything they had into opening a Dairy Queen in Madisonville. It wasn't an overnight success, but through determination and relentless hard work, it grew into something much bigger. Over time, it became a cornerstone of the town, a place where families gathered, teenagers went on dates, and memories were made. By the time they sold the business in 1985, they had built it into a multi-million-dollar success. Even then, Anne didn't slow down. After her husband's passing in 1994, she expanded into real estate, eventually owning around 40 properties. She stayed active, involved, and incredibly generous. If a tenant struggled, she helped. If someone in the church needed support, she gave, quietly, often anonymously. To many, she wasn't just successful, she was kind. And in her later years, she found something else: love. Anne became engaged to a retired eye surgeon named Dr. Bob Fenneman. Life, it seemed, still had more to offer her. But everything changed on January 13, 2003. That morning, Dr. Bob contacted police. He hadn't heard from Anne since the previous evening. Concerned, he drove to her home but couldn't get inside. He called her brother, Earl, and together they met an officer at the house. Using a hidden key, they entered. At first, nothing seemed wrong. The home was quiet, no signs of disturbance. But when Earl went down to the basement, everything changed. Anne was lying at the bottom of the stairs, motionless, gone. What initially looked like a fall quickly revealed something far darker. Anne's body was covered in injuries, brutal, excessive, and deeply disturbing. She had suffered nearly 100 stab wounds. There were defensive wounds on her arms, signs of a struggle. Even claw marks on a nearby freezer, suggesting she fought until her final moments. The attack was not just violent, it was personal. Investigators quickly ruled out robbery. Nothing was missing. Jewelry remained untouched, even a large diamond engagement ring still on her finger. There was no forced entry either, which meant one thing. Anne likely knew her killer. That realization shifted everything. Police began looking at those closest to her, starting with her fiancé, Dr. Bob. There were questions about finances, about a possible prenup, about tension beneath the surface. But his alibi checked out. Phone records placed him elsewhere at the time of the murder. He was cleared. Attention then turned to others in Anne's life. A tenant named Robert Prince, described as unstable, behind on rent, and known for strange behavior. A handyman named Wayne Shelton, someone who frequently borrowed money from Anne and never paid it back. Both had potential motives. Both were investigated. And both were eventually ruled out. Ironically, for the same reason. Neither was physically capable of committing such a violent attack. Medical conditions made it nearly impossible. Another lead, gone. Meanwhile, rumors spread across Madisonville. Fear grew. Accusations flew. Innocent people found themselves targeted, their lives disrupted by speculation. But behind the scenes, investigators had already shifted focus again. This time, to Anne's own family. Among her nieces and nephews was a man named Russell Winstead. On the surface, Russell seemed like the least likely suspect, a family man, a father of 5, quiet, respectful, close to Anne, too close perhaps. When Russell was interviewed, nothing immediately stood out until he agreed to take a polygraph test. He failed, badly. It didn't prove guilt, but it raised serious doubts. Still, he had an alibi. His wife confirmed he was home that night. For a moment, the case stalled. Then everything changed with one phone call. A man named Jeff Hibbs came forward. He worked with Russell, and what he revealed would unravel everything. Jeff described a trip to a casino just days before the murder. What he saw shocked him. Russell wasn't just gambling. He was losing thousands, tens of thousands, money he didn't have. And then came the confession. Russell told Jeff he had borrowed nearly $10,000 from his aunt, Anne. He had written her a check for $12,000, asking her not to cash it until Monday. His plan? Win big at the casino and cover the debt. But he lost everything. And when that check bounced, his entire life would collapse. The secret gambling, the debt, the lies, all of it would be exposed. Investigators followed up, and what they found confirmed Jeff's story. Casino records showed massive losses. Financial records revealed debts reaching up to $100,000 owed to Anne. And then came a critical detail. The $12,000 check was missing. It had never been deposited, and it was gone. That changed everything. Police now believed Russell had gone to Anne's house that Sunday evening, desperate to stop her from cashing the check. An argument likely followed, and in a moment of rage, he attacked, brutally. Afterwards, he cleaned up what he could and took the check. But there was still one problem, his alibi. That's when his wife came forward again and told a different story. Russell wasn't home that night. He didn't return until after 9 p.m. He had time, plenty of time. With that, investigators moved to arrest him. But Russell was gone. He had fled the country. What followed was an international manhunt. Months passed, then years. Eventually, he was found, in Costa Rica, living under a false identity, and still gambling. He was arrested and extradited, only after prosecutors agreed to remove the death penalty from the table. Even then, Russell maintained his innocence. At trial, the case seemed strong, but not perfect. No physical evidence directly linked him to the crime. Witnesses had inconsistencies. And then, one final twist. A man named Fred Roulette confessed to the murder. From jail, he provided detailed descriptions of the crime scene. Information only the killer should know. For a moment, everything was in doubt, until investigators uncovered the truth. Fred had been Russell's cellmate. The confession? A lie. A deal. Russell had coached him, fed him details, promised money. When confronted, Fred admitted everything. The final piece fell into place. In 2007, Russell Winstead was found guilty of murder and robbery. He was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 25 years. Today, he remains behind bars. But even now, some still believe he's innocent. And that might be one of the most unsettling parts of all. Because this case isn't just about a brutal crime. It's about deception layered upon deception. A man who gambled not just with money, but with trust, family, and ultimately, a life. Anne Branson gave everything to the people around her. And in the end, it was someone she trusted who took everything from her. But perhaps the most important thing to remember isn't how she died. It's how she lived, a life of resilience, generosity, and quiet strength. And maybe that's where the real story lies.